of the ACT Chess Association's online chess event summaries. My name is Sean Press. I organise these events on behalf of the ACT Chess Association. And today we're looking at the first round of the ACTCA online standard event. This is a long time control event, well, long time control at least for online events, where each player starts with 40 minutes and gets 15 seconds added for each move. This is quite popular here in ACT, and I did have a lot of requests to get this tournament up and running, which I've done so, because there are a lot of players who just prefer this sort of chess to the sort of 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute, even 10-minute chess that we also run. So we try and mix it up, give it to everybody. If you are a local Canberra player and want to play in events like this, come and join Lichess and then find the ACTCA Fast Chess Club and apply to join. But you've got to list your real name and what connection you have with ACT Chess, because I do get a lot of requests from people outside the ACT at the moment. So the game I'm looking at today was a pretty quick game, but it was played between Cam Cunningham and Jerry Cheng. Now, Jerry Cheng's an up-and-coming ACT junior player, and Cam is a long-time ACT player, and we'll see how it goes. And there's a lot of tactical lessons and tricks in here, if you're paying attention. There's also a parental warning guide, not because of the language, but because of the choice of opening for black. So e4, e5, if I can get my keyboard to work. Yep, knight to f3. So we're playing a Petrov's defense, which Jerry does play, and Cam took on e5, which is the normal move here. If you are looking for a little bit of gambit fun for white to try and beat out this opening, bishop c4 is an idea, and after knight takes e4, you play knight c3, and this is the Boden-Kizaritsky gambit. And it actually turns out, after knight takes pawn, it turns out to be quite sound for white, because black only has one real equalising move in this position, which is f6, and then the position's equal. And the reason you play f6, even though it looks incredibly ugly, is that knight to g5 is actually quite a big threat in this position because of the bishop on c1 is already guarding. And it turns out that black runs into a lot of difficulty if they don't deal with it with f6. But moving on, so knight takes e5, and now this is the parental warning here. Don't let your children play the Stafford Gambit, and this is what black has played. And I'm assuming that black has been watching too many online videos and has gone, ooh, Stafford Gambit's cool, everyone's playing it, I'm going to give it a go, because it gets beaten up pretty quickly here. So instead of knight c6, you've got a lot of other sensible moves. You've got d6 here, which is theory, and is most sensible choice. And after retreating the knight, knight takes e4, d4, d5, bishop g3. It's been played in about 1 million games, and so there's no dramas there. As the saying goes, mainline openings are mainline openings for a good reason. Knight to c3 if you want to try something slightly different here. And after knight takes c3, d takes c3. And if you're willing to allow yourself double pawns to activate the bishop on c1, then this is the go. Don't play knight takes e4. That's the one move as black you don't want to play. After queen e2, knight f6, knight c6 is a well-known trap here. And because of the get discovered attack here, you're also going to capture here. So, back to the game, knight c6. You can just play knight c6 here, d takes, and sure, black gets the dark square, the light square bishop out, etc., etc. And it's almost the mirror image of this little variation here, except white's got a pawn on e4, and it's white's move. So this adds up to a slight advantage for white. Black decided to play d4 instead. White, sorry, d4, and then capture, capture. Knight takes e4 now. Queen e2 actually is the right move here. You can play knight g5, but after knight c3, I think the knight on g5 is a little bit misplaced. It has to go back to e6, and you're losing tempo and time by playing it. So knight went to c5, which is slightly more aggressive. Knight c3 is the right move. And black would be better off at this point playing something like b6 to develop the light squared bishop and to support the pawn knight on c5, because after bishop e3, you're not really threatening to take it at this point. Bishop b7, castle's long, small advantage for white. Instead, g6, and g6 turns out to be the start of trouble for black. It's starting to really weaken the squares around the king. White could try the tricky h4 here. The idea is it prevents bishop g7, because bishop g7 double question mark, because of bishop g5 now just wins everything in this position. You're either winning the queen, or if you try and block with f6, then pawn takes f6 discovered check is also, from the queen on e2, is also very annoying. So bishop e3 hits the knight, and again b6 needed to be played here. Queen e7 got played instead, and this turns out to be this another blunder. White played f4, but you can almost immediately exploit that with knight d5. And if queen takes e5, bishop d4 is a very nice move. It's skewering queen and rook, and the queen can't take the bishop because the queen is actually pinned by the opponent's queen on the e-file. And after we take, and we take here, all the arrows show the damage. The knight can go to c7, forking king and rook. The bishop can take on h8 as well. And if the rook tries to move out of danger to g8, white has the pleasant choice between forking on c7 and forking on f6. So the position's already completely fallen apart for black. Okay? And certainly what black didn't want to have happen after playing knight c6 way back here. Okay, so here's the point. Played a gambit, hasn't worked out for you, and instead you've just created a weakness. And this is what happens when gambits go wrong, is you're either just down material without compensation, or the only moves you can play are trying to win back material, which kind of defeats the purpose of playing the gambit in the first place. Gambits are great for learning tactics, but at the same time, just be prepared to understand that they're not going to be part of a sensible opening repertoire going forward unless you really, really study it deeply. Anyway, enough of that lecture on gambits. Keep moving on. f4 got played to protect the pawn. Bishop g7. Okay, still missing the danger of knight d5, and now knight d5 landed. White woke up to it a second time, and pretty much here, black has to play queen h4 and lose material. Okay, because after g3, queen h5, we've still got threats against c7. We've still now got a threat against c5 because the bishop's moved from f8 to protect it. And white is just going to win lots of material. What white played with queen d8, it turns out to be even worse. Immediately winning the piece on c5. And then, having mentioned playing b6 about 3 times so far, black now chose the time to play b6, and b6 turns out to be completely losing in this position because there's actually a mate. Now, white didn't find the mate, but practicing your tactics, you look at all checks and all captures. Knight f6 check here. The king can't move because the bishop's on c5, and after bishop takes f6, e takes f6, and we have this nice discovered check coming down the e-file. Again, the king can't move. Queen has to go to e7, and queen takes e7 is mate. And the game could have ended at that point, but it only went on for a few more moves, so no dramas. Okay, b6, and one of the mistakes, well, it's not really a mistake, but one of the habits that we fall into, both when we're juniors and as we get older, is for juniors, we just look at finding one good move. And the moment we've found a move that we think is good, that's the move we play. We don't compare it to the next move and the next move and the next moves. The stronger you get, the more you will start to compare your moves. But as a junior, you go, hey, can I just do this? Now, interestingly enough, when we get older, we get past that. But what we often don't get past is having one good plan. We choose one good plan, and if we think that plan works, then that's it, and we don't look at it here. So in this case, white's one good plan was to trap the queen, not to checkmate. So, and this is what happened here. So bishop e7 looks like, of course, it's trapped the queen. Okay, but it hasn't quite. I mean, again, white is still winning, but black can sort of grovel a little bit with bishop a6, and after queen takes a6, the queen can run to b8. Okay, now looking at the material, black is just down 2 pieces now. Okay, and the king is trapped in the center, and I don't think the game's going to go for too long, but it's still worth looking at. Bishop went back to f6 here, just to swap. Black could castle, but that's not going to change the outcome of the game. Instead, black took. White captured here. And then the problem now is if the king goes to f8, knight takes d7, forks king and queen. So the king went to d8 and then castles. And we're just threatening rook takes on d7 mate. Okay. We could play d6 here, but after queen a4, there's still a mate threat on d7, plus threats of capturing on d6. And so king went to e7, rook takes on d7, okay, check, king to f8, okay, and now we've got mate after queen c4. So the f7 pawn is undefendable at this point. You could play something like queen to e8 to stave off the inevitable, but after knight takes e8, nothing's really going to change in this position. So queen c4, king decided to run a little bit to g7, queen took on f7, king ran to h6, and then queen g7 was mate, because the knight on f6 is doing a great job of guarding on h5. So that was a nice win for Cam, pretty direct, helped by his opponent's opening choice, knight c6. Yep, got to study it a little bit more before you wheel this one out, because nothing that Cam did was too super clever in terms of refuting it, apart from just playing natural developing moves. And the key point here was queen e7, because it looks like a good move, but when you look deeper, it turns out to be a bad move. So Cam took his chances, except maybe for the mate here, but even then his position was winning so effortlessly that you can be excused for overlooking things like that. So that was from last night's ACTCA online event. Played on Lichess with a time limit of 40 minutes plus 15 seconds per move. My name is Sean Press. I do these summaries on behalf of the ACT Chess Association, normally the day after these tournaments. And you're most welcome to come along and join if you're a local ACT player. So until I think the next tournament I'm going to be looking at is probably the Blitz tournament next Monday. So sometime early next week I'll be doing another one of these broadcasts. But for now, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you later.